I'm starting a new levee area and repairing some erosion down here. What I do, like this area here, you can see the remnants of this autumn olive. Same thing over here. Cut back this wild cherry that was too far out in the path. This whole area was over 20 feet tall, just like that green wall over there. 20 feet tall multiflora rose and autumn olive. So I cut that down. I cut that wild cherry, like I said, because it had to get out of the path. And I throw all the multiflora rose and the dead wood and the wood from the autumn olives that doesn't have any leaves on it down here, and build a brush pile in the wash to catch any soil and debris as it comes down, and start building this back up. I'll do the same thing down there later as I have more material and as I kind of work over the area. Just getting started here. This is a new area. That area up there is gonna eventually will be levied and terraced up into more rice paddy and constructed wetland areas. But first, this will be worked up, and that'll be worked into short terraces that'll be used for garden beds and the like, and as I build up the soil level. But down here, like I said, I took down these autumn olives. They'll regrow. I'll cut them down again. I take the leafy parts here and I'll take them up and stow them in the hay mow. Same thing for any of the bits of these sycamores that stick out too far. Next year I'll take this one back down to about 10 feet and that'll all go into tree hay for the year. I was cutting back through here, I found a wild plum. You can see there's some of the fruit. It's not doing super well. It's got some brown rot going on, and what appears to be plum curculio. But after I get everything cleared around it, I get some more airflow. Start running stock. Maybe I won't run stock through here next year. I'll have to take a closer look. See, you can see the poison ivy there. So we've got something going on here. I'm not sure what this is. I'll have to get a better picture and ask around. It looks like one of the wild orchids that we have in the area, but I don't know which one. It's not putty root, and it's not crane fly. I don't think that it's the small purple fringeless like is over by the pond. So that might be a fourth species of orchid out here. I don't know. Oh, here we go. Here's a gooseberry that was back here underneath the multiflora rose. You can see there's some small oak trees. There's a two-trunk tupelo there. Some pretty good sized sugar maple back over there. And a few sassafras here and there. A quite large dogwood for dogwoods. That one's up there. Oh, excuse me. This is one of the ash trees that died some years ago. You can see there's a hawthorn over there. But I'm going to go through and I'll keep clearing this out. I'll clear out all the multiflora, cut all the autumn olive back to stubs, and finish up this perimeter fence. I've got the woven wire laid out, but I haven't stretched and stapled it yet. I gotta clear branches again and make sure everything's set and ready to go. Once the leaves drop, I'll stretch and staple it rather. But yeah, so this is going to be a built-up bottom terrace. It'll be part of basically a woodland garden, orchard kind of space. You know, it's already got the wild plum here, which I'll leave and try and make conditions a little more favorable for it, and see if it puts on a decent fruit set without the disease issues next year. Give it a few years and see how it does. If it turns out not to be viable, I'll probably cut it back, top work it, graft some some other kind of plums onto it and see how that does. But I'll give it a few years and see if it can perform and set good fruit. Over here, there's some persimmon trees over here, and those will mostly get cut back and grafted onto. I'll be grafting hybrid persimmons onto those. They're crosses between the American persimmon and the Asian persimmon, the khaki species. Over here, there are some apple trees that I planted. They're seedlings that I grew out. Some of them are from domestic trees, and some of them are from Malus sieversii. Probably pronouncing that wrong, but it's the wild apple from Kazakhstan. And that brighter patch there against the skyline, that is the pear seedling that I've got up there. I need to top work that this next winter, early spring, late winter. I'll probably only put one variety on it. I was thinking about making it a multi-variety tree. We'll see. There's a crab, that big one over there is a crab apple, and there's an elm tree behind it. That crab apple, I haven't quite decided. I might top it back and graft onto it, but I might also just leave it as a pollinator tree. It's a good, healthy native crab. It's not causing a problem there, so I might just leave it as a pollinator. The smaller crabs that are up in here, though, those I will cut back and graft onto. So yeah, this has been one of my projects for the last couple days, you know, among other things I was working on. But I got this set up, got the brush pile laid in to stop the erosion down here. This whole area across here, back up that way, that's also going to go into fruit and nut trees. Same thing over this way. Along the edge of the main wood of the actual woods of the actual forest, there will be a transitional space that's fruiting trees and shrubs and smaller nut trees, basically hazelnut, pollarded and coppiced trees like oak and hickory that are allowed to grow for those. Oak and hickory, typically they'll get 10 or 15 years of growth before they're cut back and they regrow again, to give a decent sized stick wood. And the main goal is to do most of our wood harvest from these border areas instead of, from the boundary zones instead of from the forest proper, and leave the deeper forest for the big trees, and basically take that out as little as possible. Let it be, and we'll still harvest, we'll harvest maple syrup in there. We'll take out, when trees die, we'll go through and depending on the tree, we might cut it for lumber or firewood. But for the most part, I'm planning to leave the high forest as unaltered as possible in terms of cutting large amounts. There are some sections that have been cut over before that I'm planning on putting in American chestnut and selected types of hickory, especially shellbark. There's a lot to think about as far as working in the forest proper, so I'll be doing relatively little in there until these projects in the more managed areas are brought along to a relatively steady state. If we had the space for it, which I don't know, nobody does really, but if we had the space for it, I would manage things on an extreme long-term rotation, basically of roughly 200-year rotation of taking out an acre or two from the high forest, clearing it completely, turning that into crop ground for a period of time, and then running it through the entire sequence of old field mosaic, pasturage, shrub, on through, putting in, the low growing fruit and nut, and running it back into high forest probably when my grandchildren were working with it would be the sequence of events. But in order to do that, you'd have to have hundreds of acres of land under management to run things on that cycle, and you'd have to have a very stable social family system's not the right word, but your social situation and your family situation would have to be something you really thought was going to last, basically. And maybe one day, in a few more generations, maybe that'll be a thing that exists again. But I don't, I'm not going to live to see that. I don't think anyone who's currently alive will live to see that. Anyway, just, there's what I've been working on and some thoughts on the forest and on land management and on family in the future, I guess.